So, I don't even know how to have this conversation because I wrote a newsletter that I wrote a Sunday newsletter today in which I basically was like, we've seen enough from Elfrid Payton. There's no use going to this well again. And I essentially said the same thing about Frank Ntilikina. I was like, it's year 4. We're seeing these little signs. And I'm like, I'm tired of looking for little signs. I'm like, when Quickly comes back, just give him the job, let him play as much as he wants. And when he tires and you need to put him on the bench, just run without a point guard and have it be Burks and RJ and Austin Rivers when he's back and Randall and whatever else. And then tonight, Elfrid Payton came out and shot, I have to read this, 12 of 16 from the field, including, gotta get this out, 3 for 3 from deep. That happened tonight, for 27 points and 7 assists. Just utterly unbelievable stuff. And not to be outdone, Frank Ntilikina, 19 minutes, 4 for 4 from deep. That accounted for all 12 of his points. There was a I don't know how many minutes the stretch was where he was just firing away every time he got the ball from 3. What's going on? I don't know what we're doing anymore. I have no words.
I mean, it just goes to show that cyberbullying can work. That's the beauty of it. Like, just get Jonathan Macri to write a scathing Sunday morning newsletter on you, and things can start to work. So, John, we need you to continue doing this every Sunday, where you just light the fire under these players, because, we know they'll see it. We'll just we'll tweet at them and chirp at them, and things will go well. For Peyton, again, I think the one thing with the point guard crop is because fans have been, and rightfully so, very vociferous about this battle. Or if you want to call it that.
Word of the day.
We'll take it. And it's the sort of thing where I've just been kind of hanging back on Twitter and just cracking jokes because of, again, there's so little for us to parse out that it's hard to really get into the nitty gritty of the data. So I'll just, I figured might as well have fun with it in the meantime.
Yeah.
And so I've been seeing a huge amount of fans being like, just waive Peyton already. All right. Or the idea of just let go of Frank. There's nothing there, that sort of thing. And I've been quiet because it's look, guys, yes, Peyton is who he is. Absolutely. And we went on the podcast. You could call it defending the signing. To me, it was more just rationalizing that it's not a good signing, but it's the better of the shit pile. And that's what we're
it's no use going. I think our main point that night was this is not the hill to die on.
Right.
If you're a Knicks fan.
Right. And, you look at other teams in terms of what they've done with the point guard position. And even with Russell Westbrook right now, I mean, he's playing with an old coach. They do not look great either. There just were not many options.
0-3.
Exactly. Although he sat out tonight. But even still, if he were on this team, he would have sat out on a back-to-back night.
I was about to say, that's significant.
Right. And you want your players to be healthy because the number one ability is availability. So Russell Westbrook aside, let's start with Peyton. It's this idea of the Knicks in terms of how on fire they were around him. And yes, Peyton was obviously shooting lights out. I mean, he hit 3 threes, as you said. Well, he hit 14 all last year, and I think 46 games. So that's one every 3 games that he would hit a 3. And obviously incredibly small sample size, but it's still astonishing that he was able to do that tonight. But it's the players around him how they were able to succeed, how he was able to be with 3 shooters and then someone who could run the floor at the center position. And that's what we have been saying for so long, which is that if you can get that personnel and put him and have him lead that unit, he can actually do fine. And tonight was a testament where, yes, he shot the ball ridiculously well, but the other players around him did too. And on a night where maybe he's not doing as well, but the other players are even shooting around average of what they normally might, that's an NBA player. That's not a Shanghai Shark. That is someone who can actually help you.
There was never a question about whether Elfrid Payton was an NBA player. There was always the question remained about whether he should be an NBA player for this team.
Sure.
And this roster.
And what his role is, which is why I'm still in favor of having Emmanuel Quickley start but you could still have someone like Elfrid Payton off the bench. But then you also have someone like Frank Ntilikina coming. Not, I want to say it's out of nowhere, but the truth is, I don't really know how out of nowhere it is. And the reason
didn't play point guard, by the way, though.
He didn't.
He hasn't played point guard yet this year. This is he's the wing. He's on the wing.
He barely brought the ball up, and things worked against. So my view on this is everyone goes to his 3-point percentage, and they look at the fact that he shot, I think, 32, 28, 32 the last 3 years. He's 22 years old right now, and to me, it's just like a basic misunderstanding of how the math works. Where it's like 32% tells me that for every 100 threes Frank Ntilikina takes, he hits 32. If you
that is what it tells me too.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that.
Add 2 to those 32, right? Now you're hitting 34 out of 100. Yeah. It doesn't seem like a huge difference. And now we're talking about a player who is making a slight improvement to the point where at still 22 years old, he's at least becoming a serviceable 3-and-D off-ball secondary ball handler type player. Yeah. And there's value in that player. And it's why I tweeted earlier this week about how, like, Frank, to me, if you're having this ascending contract, then somewhere around the $7.5 million mark next year really isn't outrageous, especially when you look at the other players.
We got a long way to go.
Of course. And I'm not saying this game represents that. I just want to use this game as an example.
Yeah, no, it's fair.
And the idea of if he got a decreasing or a depreciating, a declining, descending deal, so many D words, a descending deal, maybe starting around 9 instead and working down would be different. I was comparing him to point guards, where if he's not going to play point guard, then it's kind of not so much pointless, but it's harder to compare him that way. The point still remains that you do not have to get rid of a guy who is shooting 34% or so. We're still a long way to go for him to get there. Yeah. You just need to see tangible improvement. And on a night like tonight, where he played, I think, 7 minutes in total over the first 2 games, where the first 5, he was just thrown out in the fourth quarter of a game that really was already over, basically. And then a few minutes into the next game where, again,
it was garbage time.
That was already over to begin with. You now have someone, it was a healthy night, no Dennis Smith Jr., no Emmanuel Quickley, Elfrid Payton going off. Frank's still not playing on ball, and that's okay because he's still adding value. And that is the beauty of it. You can find it with so many of these players. It's just in terms of how they're used. And if you create a better system for this offense, you create better looks. And with better looks come better shots, because you know that they're going to say, like, we know that Frank is great from this spot. We know that Burks is great from that spot. We're going to try to optimize it so we can get them great open looks from there. And it starts to work out that way. And it's not going to be the whole season, of course, but this is a nice glimpse into all of these players and what they can provide.
Yeah, but if they're putting Frank on the wing, that inherently means they think that he could hit enough shots to be useful and keep defenses honest, right?
Well, as of right now, it means that with down a few men, that's where they see him. We don't know where with a healthy rotation where he is, but I agree. They don't see him as a penetrating guard. He isn't. There was one moment too where he could have easily taken a floater and he just didn't, and that's very frustrating to watch because you want to see that aggression.
He had several moments tonight that were frustrating where it's just like those are the moments where, and that's why, and I've started on this train in January or February, I think. I just don't think he's an NBA point guard. I think he's an NBA player, and I think he's an NBA player that could help teams, especially in this era where, do we need a point guard? Do we not need a point guard? It's like you need guys who could draw attention and move with the ball. Doesn't necessarily need to be in a certain package, but whatever. He's a guy that they think can hit enough shots to keep defenses honest. And I think, all towards the end of the preseason, I started to kind of get in this mindset that he was going to be the 11th guy in a 10-man rotation. And tonight they played 9. It was essentially a 9-man rotation tonight because it was the 5 starters, Barrett, Payton, Robinson, Bullock, Randall, and then Knox, Burks were the 2 primary, like they got the most minutes off the bench. And then it was Ntilikina and Noel. And Noel, by the way, for all of the consternation, another word of the day, for all the consternation about the minutes that he was going to take from Mitchell Robinson, what is he averaging? 12 minutes, 13 minutes, 14? I don't even know. It's not a lot. And I think, like, again, Tibbs is a good coach. He's a good coach in the fact that he's doing things like, hey, Mitchell Robinson is better than Nerlens Noel. I'm going to play Mitchell Robinson more. He's a good coach in that he has a guy like Frank Ntilikina. Does the team want him? Maybe, maybe not. Does he want to be here? Maybe, maybe not. But he's coming in and he's playing his ass off. And if as was reported last night, after that game ended against the Sixers, he was out there putting in extra work. That to me is a testament to the coaching staff and what they're doing. And whatever they're instilling in the roster. I still think when this team is healthy, Frank is the odd man out, because once Quickly comes back and once Toppin comes back, and then even if Bullock may be shooting himself out of the rotation. Unfortunately, I feel bad saying that, but Bullock's been just he's been okay. He's been making the right plays, been doing the right things. He's been moving around, but he's not hitting his shots. And I wonder, is that going to be the spot that Austin Rivers takes when he gets back?
But just sooner than later, he posts on Instagram and it seems like he's really not that far away.
Yeah, he's going to be either he took contact today or he's going to be taking contact tomorrow or something like that. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's going to be injuries, as we've already seen, Quickly and Obi. There's going to be injuries throughout the year. I don't know what they do. Payton's not going anywhere. He's going to continue to get minutes on this team. And look, he was a lot better tonight. I don't know how else to say it. He was a lot better tonight. And if he's attacking on offense like he was tonight, that is a useful player. And he does get, here's the thing with Payton, and you can watch it. He gets guarded when he has the ball in his hands, and he gets guarded out beyond the 3-point line, despite the fact that he doesn't have a 3-point shot, because defenders know that if you give him a runway, he is able to cause damage. And historically, he has done that. He has been able to do that. So he gets guarded out on the perimeter if he has the ball in his hands. Yes, guys are going to go under screens on him, but he's crafty and he could do stuff with that. The problem is when he doesn't have the ball in his hands. And so to get back to what we were saying before, if you're going to run this offense essentially through Julius Randle and RJ Barrett, what is Payton doing? And we've already seen, clips after clips of there's Payton hanging out behind the arc and no one's paying attention to him. And, finally tonight he hit some threes, but those are probably not going to go down at this rate. So what's the secret? The secret is either you put the ball in his hands more when he's in the game, and when the ball is not in his hands, you just got to move him around a lot. Because that's, I feel like, the only way to counter that is to just have him be moving constantly, have him be available for cuts, because that's the other part about if the ball's in Randall's hands or RJ's, theoretically, those guys are going to be able to hit a cutter on a well-timed cut. So, we were all probably too quick to throw dirt on the grave of one Elfrid Payton. We'll still take tonight with a grain of salt, but it's either way. It's good.